weeks, and we have been living inside of the favelas for 3 weeks. So we didn't just watch it from the outside, but we were really staying in a church in the middle of the favelas. And the first thing that stood out to me was the fact that the favelas were so close together to other neighborhoods. Before, we had been staying in a, I'd say, middle-class neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. And when it was time to move on to the favelas, I expected a bus ride or a car ride, but we just walked for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we were actually standing right in the middle of the favelas. So there's not this big of a separation between a normal neighborhood and the favelas. That was the first thing that really surprised me. The second thing that is pretty obvious is just the drug dealing that is going on in the favelas. It's just everywhere. You can imagine one longer street, and in both entrances they throw in freezers and couches and stuff, and have people watching those entrances with a walkie-talkie. And kind of in the middle of the street they set up this small camping table and sell cocaine out of those huge plastic bags just in the middle of the day. All the drug dealers carry weapons. They have connection via walkie-talkie with the people who control the entrances, and it's just a normal thing. There isn't any police, but the drug cartel has the whole control about the favela. That was the first thing we recognized, and you do have some rules how to behave towards those people, like for example not taking pictures of them, because obviously they don't like that. But except from that, they were extremely respectful towards us. As I said before, the only forces or control forces in the favelas are those drug dealers. There isn't any police or something. And so our hosts asked the cartel before we came if we could come, and they agreed. So we had the right to be there, and they were really nice to us. We just greeted, they greeted back. And one really amazing thing was that when we offered prayer to those drug dealers, they would be so open for it. They would lay aside their gun, they would switch off their walkie-talkie, let us pray for them, and then they would just go back to work. So they were really respectful, and I felt pretty safe because I felt like we were under the protection of those drug dealers. But I'm pretty sure if you don't have that favor, then those favelas are for sure not a great place to be. Another thing that was, I'd say, typical for our favela were the graffitis. So there were huge graffitis all over the place at houses and places and stuff. And they told the story how those are produced. So the people in the favela like this kind of art, and the government pays graffiti artists to make those. They give them money, but those artists drag the money to buy drugs and to get completely stoned, and then they produce those graffitis. And although from an art point of view they are really amazing, those graffitis, you can actually see that they are produced in a drug rush, because they're just crazy. That's the only word I have to describe them. It's completely crazy, and you can see those graffitis everywhere. Except from that there's so much crime going on. When you actually meet the people in there, it's really interesting. There are some people who are just so abolished and done from drugs and from a really bad lifestyle. And apart from that, they're just completely normal people living there. A lot of them have a job. A lot of them are really welcoming and open for strangers to come in like me and our group. So although those people are living in a slum, like we would call it, they're really nice, are really open and caring. That's what I experienced from them. Another thing, how I felt in the favelas, like I said before, the drug dealers accepted us, so I always felt safe. And when we accepted some rules, like not going on the streets during night time, and always being with a local Brazilian, that wasn't a big problem. So I personally always felt safe, but I also slept through a lot of stuff like those funky parties that were going on during weekends with a lot of music and shootings and everything, but I always slept through those. So for me, I felt pretty safe, and it was a great experience to actually experience those favelas from the inside that you normally only hear of.
But I wanted to see the other side. The authorities have been busy pushing out gangs from these slums of favelas. Police say they now control these streets. The reality is different. Here too, they are getting ready for the World Cup. Everyone wants a piece of the action.
Se Deus quiser, vai ajudar nós. Nós vai vender papo de quilos por dia. Isso aqui vai ser só o começo.
Under the noses of the police, a drug factory. Take pure cocaine. Mix half and half with baking powder.
Por 1 kilo de cocaína, ¿cuánta mistura?
15 latas.
Ajá.
Blend well.
Essa é cocaína misturada, sim?
Isso. Foi misturada já. Só tá traçando.
Then add the secret ingredient.
Adrenalina.
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 Ai.
And that's the recipe for one of the biggest businesses in Rio, with its own private army to protect this multi-million-dollar operation.
These guys, they sell 2 kilos of cocaine a day, and next year for the World Cup, they're expecting to double that.
It took us weeks of talking to the gangs before we were allowed to film here.
Eles são covardes, eles só entram quando tá cheio de morador. O cara vai entrar de madrugada. Cada vez entrar de madrugada. Vai escutar muito tiro. Muito tiro.
What I saw was just lots of people in houses crammed on these hills with lots of stairways, furniture like couches blocking the road so police can't get in, and walkie-talkies on corners to communicate with one another if police did come, guns in the open, people walk around, hands, lots of garbage and litter on the ground, drugs, lots of bought and sold, and new. We had funky parties, so we saw the actors on it, dance party, just poverty in general, and it felt really sad and despair, like watching drug usage, just in their lifestyle. We're also hopeful about the positive change Jesus can bring in their lives. We're also overwhelmed, surprised at just the differences from home. It's also like happy for the injustice and openness and how welcome they were to us. The atmosphere in general was about hopelessness and despair and depression, but there's also gratitude and friendliness. And the differences from Canada would just be that people were so friendly, they were open to the gospel, open to prayer and Christianity. And they just had a big sense of community. Everyone was talking to each other, hanging out with each other. But there's also drugs everywhere, and the police can't go in, so the girl, her husband couldn't go to church. Those are the biggest differences, and the things that stereotype.
Qual o seu nome?
Meu nome é Cristiano Amorim.
E há quanto tempo você vive aqui na Vila Operária?
Estou aqui há 32 anos.
Tá, me conta como que era a sua vida aqui antes da pacificação.
Antes da pacificação, eu e meus amigos vivíamos aqui com muita gente ruim e boa. E rodeava muito entre amigos as drogas. E com isso perdemos muitos amigos e também arrumamos novos amigos.
Tá, e depois da pacificação, o que teve de melhor?
Depois da pacificação veio mais a calmaria. A droga foi abolida, não toda, mas a maioria, 90% da droga não existe mais na favela. Existem os usuários que compram fora para reutilizar, mas a vida melhorou 90%.
Tá, ok, obrigado. Qual o seu nome?
Fernanda Patrícia.
Tá, me fala um pouco sobre a Vila Operária antes da pacificação.
A Vila Operária era muito difícil, uma comunidade muito difícil, era muitos tiros, muitos furtos, né? Às vezes a gente vinha pela rua e aconteceu fogos, alguma coisa, a gente tinha que correr meio assustado, mas foi difícil, mas agora tá tranquilo.
Tá, e depois da pacificação, o que veio de positivo?
Agora tá uma benção, graças a Deus. Os policiais pelas ruas, eles até tchauzinho, boa noite, graças a Deus melhorou 100%. Não tem mais baile, zero terror na sexta-feira e graças a Deus agora melhorou muito.
Oi, meu nome é Poliana Alves, eu tenho 21 anos, eu sou brasileira, moro no Rio de Janeiro. Então, eu vou falar um pouco do que acontece nas favelas aqui no Rio de Janeiro. Então, como eram as favelas antes das leis? Assim, nas favelas não existiam leis exatamente, né? As leis das favelas aqui no Rio de Janeiro eram dadas pelos traficantes, né? Que são os donos das favelas. Então, o que acontece? Os moradores eles ficavam sob o controle desses traficantes. Então, eles tinham que fazer tudo. Praticamente, os traficantes eram donos dos moradores das favelas. Então, por isso, eles ficavam, né, abaixo deles. Então, assim, esses traficantes, eles faziam o Rio de Janeiro um lugar muito perigoso. Não quero dizer que não esteja perigoso, ele é perigoso um pouco, mas é uma melhorada, assim que vieram as leis, né, do governo. O governo resolveu implantar o UPP, que é a Unidade Pacificadora de Policiamento aqui do Rio de Janeiro. Então, assim, foi quando as polícias resolveram tomar as favelas. E as favelas ficaram sob o comando dos policiais, né? Foi tomada pelo policiamento e tal.